You have to train them to a higher intensity if you want to grow legs. Now, that doesn't mean annihilating yourself once a week and just doing loads of isolation exercises, because that will get you to a point. You're better off to learn good technique, spread your volume, incorporate bigger compound movements. All right, guys, welcome back. So here we are again. This is leg day number 1. You've already watched a video at this point, which is my push day. So I've sort of got these in a different order, but it doesn't matter because either way, you can go through them and it will have episode 1, 2, 3, and you can watch them in that order, and I will explain all the nuances anyway. So technically, this is the day that I actually start with, which is leg day. So again, forthcoming and a refresher, depending on when you're watching this. At the moment, day 1, Monday is legs, Tuesday is push, Wednesday is pull, Thursday is off, Friday is full lower body, so legs again, and Saturday is full upper body, Sunday rest. So before we move on to other videos and rest days, I'm talking about legs. So again, guys, welcome back. If you've not watched any of the other videos and you've just handpicked this one, yes, you're gonna learn some stuff about leg training and some things that you can take away for your own training as well. However, if you wanna watch them in order, you certainly can. But anyway, I've sort of designed these videos that you can just handpick them and learn something. So first up on leg day, again, caveat if you've not already known. So again, I'm avoiding anything that generally loads my spine because of things I've aforementioned many times in the other videos. So the first exercise is a vertical leg press on this day. Vertical leg press, phenomenal machine. If you have the luxury of having one, really, really good to take advantage of. I was using a belt squat, but that got taken away. This is just another way to do, if you like, an inverted squat variation. A lot of gyms have a horizontal or a diagonal, but not a lot of gyms have a vertical. Prerequisite, be careful if you're using these. You want to make sure that the machine you're using is set up correctly or in the best position for you, biomechanically, meaning your limb lengths. So for example, you should be able to adjust the top plate. You'll see here I'm leg pressing it, I've got it on quite an angle. I've also adjusted the seat that I'm in away, so it's in the less acute fashion. So rather than it being like this, if my head is here, I've got it like that. And you can see on these videos here, I've opened it up so I can get a larger range of motion, so I can get a little bit deeper without losing a neutral spine. So the biggest mistake I see in a leg press is that the angle of the leg press is left too acute, so the seat is so far up to the plate, therefore it limits range of motion even more. And if we think about, this is a squat variation, so it's a hinging from the hips, hinging from the knees, okay? And obviously we can do different variations like close grip, high stance, etc. But a lot of people, they're too acute, they can't come down far enough, because if you think about it, you're already at a 90-degree angle from the hips anyway, so you're never gonna get the fuller range as you are in an actual squat or in a hack squat, where you're in more of a vertical position, if you like. So if you have that seat right up, you're sort of moving in this really small range, and you're gonna be, for the most part, impinging your lower back. If you're trying to go too low, you're gonna lose the neutral spine. That's why you might have some back pain from it, or you're not bracing. And obviously you're just not gonna get as much out of it. So, you know, we're all about training intelligently and getting the maximum from the minimum. So you wanna make sure that you're setting machines up correctly. A really, really important factor that a lot of people overlook when it comes to machines. And if you understand the principle, it doesn't matter what machine you're on anywhere around the world, as I talk to my clients about, you're gonna be able to use the machines to maximum effect, whether that's techno, gym, synergy, you know, muscle strength, whatever it is that's out there, you can understand the principle and set it up as best for you as you can. So I'm generally doing 4 sets of that. Again, we've been doing sort of a linear and double progression in weight, reps, and sets. Generally more sets on this first exercise. The rest of the legs, generally 3 sets at the moment, purely because I've got quite a lot of volume, or I've got a few more exercises and rep ranges in than I normally would. So I find that if I get to 4 sets on everything with legs over my 2 leg days, it can be a little too much. I stress the central nervous system, and I'm not actually able to progress as well. So I'm spreading that volume, as I've talked about before. So after the vertical leg press, we're then moving on to a dumbbell Romanian deadlift. So dumbbell Romanian deadlift, I've reintroduced over this block. It's a free weight exercise. It's something that I've generally not been doing or doing any free weights or barbell work because I didn't want to load the spine. So this is a nice little introductory way to get back into a stiff leg or even actually a conventional deadlift where there's going to be a lot more weight that's going to be pulling and compressing down on the cervical and the thoracic part of the spine. So this has been feeling good lately. Again, hinging, this is a hip hinge movement, guys. So a lot of people, there's too much knee extension. So there's a little bit of knee flexion. So if you look, you can think about, as I say to my clients, if your knees, if you're thinking about standing up straight, you can think of a little wall in front of your knees and you can actually extend the knees over the toes. There's a little bit, but not too much, but you can actually then hinge back. So think about sending your hips back to the wall, making sure the pelvis stays under the rib cage. So you can do that by tucking, okay? So that's, you don't want to lose the position. So I'm not going to get too technical, but generally a lot of people with their hip movement, they can actually flip their hips. So they have what we call anterior pelvic tilt, where the pelvis sort of flips forward and then you end up in this really arched position. You start pinching your back. So what you want to do is you want to tuck your hips under, because you're technically hinging from the femur, even though we say hips, and then you want to kick yourself back and maintain a neutral spine. And you don't want any of this happening either. So you want to make sure you keep your chin with you. So if you think about the Motorola flip phones, remember those for all of you who were around in the 90s, you're sort of trying to double yourself over and send the hips backwards rather than just over, because otherwise you fall forward and you're going to feel like you lose balance. But anyway, guys, shameless plug. If you want more on that, jump into my academy and I'll break down all those exercises. And I may even do a series doing this, I think, later on all of these exercises. So I'll actually be in the gym with you and we'll go through step by step, which I think will be quite handy. Because technique, guys, is literally going to be one of the most powerful things that you can do to mitigate injury, but also fast forward your success and gains, and that's what you're here for. So just making sure that you're hinging through the hips. You want sort of a shoulder width stance, generally quite neutral, so there's not a massive toe out on this one. Again, you want to make sure the glutes, the core is on, you're bracing, and then it's mainly hamstrings and glutes on this one, posterior chain. We're doing 3 sets on that. We're moving on to a machine. I've been doing it's like a rear kickback or a reverse leg press, if you like. So I'm sort of kicking back, I'm using quadriceps, I'm using hamstrings, I'm using glutes. It's a really, really nice way to get the volume in on a machine like this because it's really safe. As long as you've got everything stacked, you can just push and push and push, and there's very little room for injury unless you're doing something really, really wrong. Then I've got 2 classics, so generally superset. So we've got a hamstring seated leg curl, and I've got in this particular gym, we've got like an incline backless, so it's got no back on it, leg extension, seated leg extension. So quite cool, a lot of core activation, putting you up on an incline, so really, really hitting the top of the quads massively, a lot of activation. From those ones. The seated leg curl is absolutely phenomenal. For years, I could not get a seated leg curl to work for me. It was purely based on knowledge and just poor understanding of the movement pattern of the technique. What you want to do, guys, because a lot of you probably go, oh, I have like knee pain from it or it doesn't work. You got to make sure that, again, your hips are underneath your rib cage. You've got to position the seat far enough forward so that the pads are just under the patella, and then you can actually get the pad that you're pulling back towards you at the low ankle. So it's almost like a reverse leg extension. You want to make sure you position yourself so you can push yourself into the seat, so don't use too much weight. As soon as the hips come forward, as soon as you can't maintain that position, if the pad's in the wrong place, it will cause discomfort in the knees. There will be a little bit. By just shifting yourself back, positioning yourself on this machine, you can get a lot more out of it. And based on the latest literature as well, there's a lot more hamstring growth or response from a seated leg curl than a lying leg curl. So it's worth doing if you can do it pain-free and progress on. Based on what we know at the moment, again, this is based on what we know, so it's not a God-given. There generally seems to be more crossover in hamstring growth, so it's worthy to put it in your exercise archive, if you like. So this is an isolation movement with the seated leg extension, or the incline in this case. I like to superset these. Why is the magic? No, it increases the intensity and the metabolic work capacity. Again, it's agonist-antagonist, so opposite muscle groups. You know, we go from hamstrings then to quads. There's a lot less fatigue. It is a low risk, high recovery exercise, so I generally like to do it for efficiency as well. And quite frankly, again, I just love a sick fucking leg pump because I'm a sadistic bastard and I really love this. The other thing then we go on to is a calf raise. So we don't have the proper machine standing calf raise, which is one of my favorite machines. It's like your general go-to standard. So we've got this hack squat, which you can kind of fashion. You'll see here where I'm doing it, which I've recently put in. Other than that, I would just use a platform. I'd use free weights to create that sort of same vibe. Or we've got like a seated variation, like where you're very inverted or very high up, if you like. So you're almost standing, but you're not, which you may have seen on some of my Instagram videos and my other YouTube videos as well. And literally calf-wise, guys, again, super big mistake on calves is most people are not, they're bouncing. So again, I'll mention this in my other leg video because I can't stress enough. Achilles tendon, one of the biggest in the body. It will do a lot of that work. It will take a lot of that tension. So you'll see a lot of people just bouncing with loads of weight. It's not doing much for the actual gastrocnemius, which is the biggest part of the calf muscle that you want to activate, that you can see, where if you go down into what we call dorsiflexion, so you stretch out as much as you can with your flexibility, hold it for a second, and then come up to the top of the movement, and you'll see here, and hold it and squeeze like you're trying to get on your tiptoes, peak contraction. I guarantee you'll have to do a third of the weight, and you'll feel your calves like you've never felt them before. You'll also not put any tension or unwanted stress on those tendons, on these Achilles tendons. You'll get way more growth out of the calves, and anyone who tells me that they can't grow calves, well, quite frankly, you're not training them enough, you're not training them properly, or you're not training them to the intensity they need to. With legs, there are big muscle groups, okay? They cause a lot of central nervous fatigue, and they're fucking hard. And this is why a lot of people don't train them. They're big group muscles, they're used to doing a lot of work, they're carrying us around all day. So generally, because of their fiber type, and I'm not gonna get too into that, but you have to train them to a higher intensity if you wanna grow legs. Now, that doesn't mean annihilating yourself once a week and just doing loads of isolation exercises, because that will get you to a point. You're better off to learn good technique, spread your volume, incorporate bigger compound movements, as you can see in my program here, and then bring the training intensity up over time and undulate it. Because at the end of the day, it's what you do most of the time, not just for one session. So if you're just nailing yourself in the gym, it's stupid. I'm telling you now, stop it. Learn to get smarter, work smarter, then train harder. You definitely have to train hard, but first you have to train smart. As a generalization, most people fall into two categories. They're either training smart, but they're just not training hard enough or with enough consistency, or the other crew are just absolutely nailing themselves with no form and they've just got no idea. And both of them get to a point and then they spin their wheels. So anyone who wants a more than intermediate physique and isn't taking performance enhancing drugs, you're generally going to have to learn how to do this in the smartest way possible, which is just following evidence-based protocols. It's not magic. And then just being fucking consistent. So I just really want to underline that point. So that's pretty much it. I train the calves for failure most of the time, and then I'll just do a progression where I'm adding weight, and I'll swap the variation out quite frequently, and I'll even throw a third day in on upper body, because generally they won't get that sore. The first time you train them properly, they probably will, and then they'll adapt, so you can really nail the isolation movements on the legs, and they will generally recover quite fast. That is it, guys, for the first leg day. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for all the new subscribers. And for those of you who are watching and haven't subscribed, please go and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Like the video. Remember to comment if you want to see anything specifically, or if you've got anything positive to say. And of course, hit that bell icon when you subscribe, or if you've already subscribed, hit the bell icon anyway, because you'll get notifications every week when we drop a video. And trust me, we're dropping one every week, also sometimes twice a week for the podcast as well. So make sure you go and tune in on that. That's available here on YouTube if you want to watch it, or any of your favorite social media platforms, iTunes, Spotify, the works. It is there. Guys, thank you. Take care. Until the next video, of course, you already know. Stay fearless.